Hi, Mitch, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Great.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Chair, we're at 10 o'clock. We do have quorum. And I would just remind the committee that following the request made at the last meeting, procedures have been changed and this meeting will be live streamed and recorded.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And I'll say the same. This meeting will be live stream recorded and available on the internet by visiting the county's website at thecounty.ca. This meeting will be conducted as a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual electronic participation in accordance with the county's procedural bylaw. Can I get a confirmation of today's agenda, please? Motion? Councillor St. Jean, seconded by Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. St. Jean, forward motion that the agenda for the Water and Wastewater Rates Committee meeting of July 17th, 2025 be confirmed.
Thank you. All in favor? That carries. That'll move us to Section 3, disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof. Does anybody have anything to declare today? Didn't think so, seeing none. That'll move us to item 4.1. It's the Water and Wastewater Rates Committee minutes from the meeting held May 15th, 2025. Before we adopt those, did anybody have any questions or concerns about those minutes? No? Can I get a motion then to adopt the minutes, please? Bob Cook, and seconded by Chris Ryerson. So the motion is that the minutes from the Water and Wastewater Rates Committee meeting held May 15th, 2025 be adopted as presented. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. I don't believe there's any announcements today. So we'll move on to comments from the audience. I know we have one registered comment, Dorothy Bothwell. Welcome, Dorothy, and just a reminder, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and committee members. I respectfully request that this committee tell Council that enough is enough regarding debt. The county has spent $61 million so far in water wastewater debt for works to date. This has been financed through temporary borrowing and construction loans, all of which are charging interest today. Growth only pays for growth if growth actually happens. In the 2022 to 26 rates forecast, significant growth was predicted in both development and commercial building. Reality check, it didn't happen. Existing ratepayers are now expected to carry the bulk of debt in principal and interest payments rather than the 25% that was predicted, based on the assumption that new development would pay the other 75%. The annual principal interest payments for this spending is $2 million. An already large number. The fact that ratepayers now must carry the majority of the debt financing until growth happens, if it ever does, means a massive increase over that annual $2 million. Even if the $12 million paid by Caitlin in development charges is applied to the current $61 million debt, the impact to the existing 6,500 ratepayers is substantial. Growth pays for growth only if development actually happens. The May 15th response to number 13 of Joanna Green's deputation states, without sufficient growth-related funding through development charges, the financial burden of these costly projects would fall on existing ratepayers. If growth does not contribute through development charges, water rates would need to rise more sharply to fund required infrastructure on their own. Development charges cannot be relied upon to fund infrastructure spending that is guaranteed to be no less than estimates, and in many cases much more, with overruns. The county must have a solid financial plan to pay for what we have now before even considering committing to nearly $250 million more for a new regional water treatment plant. Who will pay? Exactly. The county must communicate in clear, plain English so that ratepayers and taxpayers can understand what is the impact to water sewer rates for this year and the next 10 years following, if nothing else is done beyond the $61 million already spent. What is the impact to ratepayers of spending $200 million more over the next 10 or 20 years? None of the material provided to public so far discusses risk. It is increasingly looking like population growth in the county is not going to be massive. Lots of people have thrown out lots of projections, but none of them are guaranteed to be right. And the risk of being wrong means that money spent today will never be recovered and there will be no benefit to the county. I would respectfully ask this committee to request council, number one, obtain and communicate a complete financial risk assessment and plan for the current and forecasted debt before undertaking any additional infrastructure works, and require a Class EA amendment to the Regional Picton Master Servicing Plan because the original modeling relied on growth forecasts, which are very questionable now, and that significantly increases the financial risk to the county. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy. Just going to see if any committee members have questions for Dorothy. Seeing none, thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to provide a comment today? No? Okay. Can I please get a motion then to accept today's comments from the audience? Chris, seconded by Councillor St. Jean. I guess the motion would be to accept today's comments from the audience on today's agenda. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. So that'll move us to item 7.1. It's a report of the Finance Department dated July 17, 2025 regarding Prince Edward County Water and Wastewater Debt Reserve and Grant Overview. I believe this was put together by Director McNichol, so I'm going to hand it over to Aaron to walk us through.
Thank you, and through the chair to members of the committee. So this was a report that was on the proposed schedule, and it was a report on reserves, debt, as well as our open grants. On our schedule, it also noted continuous improvements and annual budgeting adjustments. I didn't include that within the report. I wasn't really sure. I didn't create the schedule, so we can have an open discussion about that if you like, but I didn't include that part on the report. So again, the report's on debt, reserves, and grants, the one grant we have open. One of your questions may be, did I compare this to the water wastewater rate study or the financial plan that we had previously done? So this is just a snapshot of our reserves and our debt at the end of 2024. This is not a comparison to the past water wastewater rate study or financial plan to say we have enough reserves or we're spending the same amount as debt that we had forecast. This is sort of just like a snapshot at a moment in time. But moving forward, after the next water wastewater rate study I would probably recommend on a yearly basis doing financials in comparison to the water wastewater rate study, so we can ensure that the rates are set appropriately just on a yearly basis. So I contextualize the debt. So the first part of the debt section is just on the county's overall debt picture, and then I separate water and sewer from that. Overall, there's about $20.35 million worth of debt for water wastewater. That's made up of a number of different loans, not just one. So it's not just one loan for water and one debt for sewer. It's made up of a bunch of different loans. And we also have 2 construction loans that add up to about $40 million. In the attachment, it lists a number of the projects that have been occurring since 2021, I believe. And we're just right now confirming substantial completion on those projects with development services, as well as some finance staff and Don. Now, once we confirm closure and substantial completion, what we'll do is we'll roll that into debt. I have a meeting with IO next week, and provided substantial completion, we'll start the process of bringing a bylaw to council and getting council approval to roll that into debt. Overall, that would amount to about, I guess about a little bit $61 million in debt, basically indicating that we are leveraged. But overall, I think, and from what I understand, it's a strategic use of debt, spending it on water and wastewater rate infrastructure that will last and add growth capacity as well. Our current debt, from what I understand, is completely offset through the rates. It's been included in the past rate study. I have, and that's confirmed through a discussion with Watson. I have not looked through our former water wastewater rate study to confirm that, but what I understand is all our existing debt is included in our last water wastewater rate study. In terms of the construction loan of $40 million, when that's rolled into debt, and as we go through the development charge background study process, we will determine what portion is growth related and what portion is non-growth related. And the portion that's non-growth related will end up hitting the actual rate study. So that's how the two sort of tie together there. So would there be any questions on the debt side of the report?
Chris, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Sorry.
Sorry, yes, Aaron. So this is a snapshot of where we are now. I know that, clearly we're embarking on more projects than what are talked about in this particular snapshot. Have you modeled the range of debt that we can incur for those future projects?
Yes, we have. We have looked at, I've modeled the HJ. We've came up with amortization schedules and the offset with the provincial grants. We've also roughly estimated what some of the future projects on a water wastewater side would cost in principal and interest payments. And then started a sensitivity assessment of 3 different growth numbers. That is ongoing as we speak. I've done some rough calculations, but certainly, yes, we've been working on that.
And can you talk to the range of debt that you see as feasible to incur for those projects? Like obviously you have a lower bound and an upper bound, right?
I probably won't comment on that till the report goes to council regarding some of the options we have for the water wastewater projects in the future specifically. Now, in terms of the ARL, certainly if we were to incur a large amount of debt, our ARL would be in jeopardy for sure. We would be over our ARL. So we would definitely have to consider that.
When do you plan to make that report then available to council with those numbers?
I think the initial was July, but now council, I think council's been notified by the CAO that we're currently working through some of the technical aspects of the project, and we're also working on the growth numbers as well. In terms of the DC background study, we have received comment from the developers. I believe there's been 3 or 4 separate packages that developers have given us, which we've given to Watson. Watson will take that into consideration into what they've already calculated. And then we will move forward with the development charge background study. Watson currently is coming back with an adjusted timeline just because there's been a lot of moving parts here. So there will be an adjusted timeline that will be coming forward with regards to when the DC background study will be completed. And again, the DC background study, the water wastewater rate study, the asset management plan, and all of this is sort of tied together. So we're trying to, there's a lot of moving parts. We're trying to sort of piece it all together in the most efficient way.
Right, but the thing I keep coming back to is that puts a range of numbers on your growth, puts a range of numbers on the projects required, and the range of numbers on the debt that you can incur. You've modeled that already. You know what those ranges look like. Can you share with us the upper bound for debt that is, like, regardless of what projects we take on, the upper limit of debt is known, right? It's based on our financial position rather than what we want to do.
What I don't have, or through the chair, what I don't have is the numbers I've been working with are rough numbers and they're not finalized numbers. So in terms of growth factors that I was working with is sort of unknown. So I really don't want to. I don't really want to say what the upper or the lower limit. Like the ARL indicates what our upper limit is, which is I think as of the last FIR in 2023, I think it was around 14 or 18 million dollars. I'd have to look that up. That is our principal and interest payment maximum based on 25% of our own source revenues with no exclusions. So technically it would be based on that. Now, if we were going to go above that, we would have to apply, we would have to ask the ministry if we could go above that. And then OREG 40302, I believe it is, states what can be an exclusion. So we have received some money from Caitlin, for example, for upfront financing. It is possible to utilize that as an exclusion or apply that towards the debt payments to allow us not to go over our ARL. So there's sort of a lot of pieces of legislation that are going on there. So.
Okay, so the date by which you plan to sort of come clean on all this is what?
I'm not too sure. I think it's whenever the sensitivity assessment gets done and the engineering works are done, and then we have a good idea and we're comfortable with where we're at, then I believe the CAO will sort of talk to council about a date to bring forward a wastewater financing strategy for the next X amount of years.
Okay, any other questions from around the table? Janice?
Thank you. So the 20.35 is already anticipated in the current rate study, basically offset by the current rate study? The ones that aren't the construction loan? Sorry.
Through the chair, so the existing debt that we have is funded through the existing rate study.
Right. That's the 20.35, yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And then the 41 is until the DC background study is done, we won't know what will be related to growth and what will be related to the actual rates, rate section.
Okay, so that will then come, that'll come into play once the next rate study is completed.
Yeah, absolutely, through the chair, absolutely. And Watson, both Peter Simcisco from Watson as well as Sean Michael are scheduled to come on November 6th, I believe, to the committee to discuss the rate study and then how the committee is going to be involved and the timelines and at what stage. And then Peter Simcisco will be talking about how it dovetails with some of the modeling work we're doing on the asset management side. So we're going to try to cover the modeling, the asset management, and then the actual rate study work at the November 6th meeting.
Okay, so some of that 41 million that will be in the next rate study, some will probably go to rates and some will be covered by either DCs or collection charges.
Absolutely, there will be a certain portion that will be allocated to the rates and a certain portion that will be growth related. One item that I didn't include in the report that I probably should have, that I was reading this morning, is just when some of the debt comes due. So there's about $12 million of debt that will mature in 2032. And then there's roughly $8 million of existing debt that will come due between 2047 and 2049. So I just missed putting that in the report, but it is relevant.
Okay. Yeah. Bob?
If I've estimated it properly from the previous rate study, the total water and wastewater debt servicing cost that was forecast, say for 2024, was 3.7 million. And from your report, the current charges are 2.2, roughly, actual. So what would contribute to that variance?
Through the chair, well, if it would be based on, so you'd have your rate study and you'd have your capital projects and then you'd have your reserves and your debt. If we Perhaps the revenues could be higher, and perhaps some of the capital projects that were estimated to be completed at a certain time either came in under, or perhaps they were pushed off to another year. There could be a number of reasons why we didn't incur the debt that we should have. It could be that the project maybe was pushed off a year or two. Again, I didn't compare the quick numbers that I did look at regarding the financial plan and some of, I think it was 1A, the scenario 1A of the study, did actually put us in a better position than, our numbers suggest that we're in a better position than what the actual study says. But I wasn't 100% completely comfortable with the numbers, and it was about 100 pages I'd have to read through. But again, the numbers looked a little bit better for 2025 than what was in the study. We had more reserves than what was in the actual study based on what I could see, and we actually had less debt. But again, I didn't want to put that into the report because I wasn't completely comfortable with all of the data quite yet.
A follow-up? Go ahead, Bob.
So when there are positive variances, material, significant ones, are the rates ever opened up for adjustment?
Through the chair, I'm not too sure. I know in my experience in the past, we did a presentation on a yearly basis to the wastewater water board, showing that what the rates were set on and what the actuals were at the end of the year. And in the years where there was a variance, we usually could explain it. So we never pursued opening it up. I don't know that, I'm not familiar with the technical aspect of doing that. I don't see why we couldn't make rate adjustments if the numbers were quite far off where we had estimated, and then it was a trend, and we couldn't explain it. I wouldn't see there would be a reason why, but I don't know the technical answer to that.
One last question. So would a sort of a post-mortem of the previous rate study produce some learnings that could be helpful to our work?
Through the chair, I think so. So from my perspective, I wanted to sort of start fresh, going back and looking through the hundreds and hundreds of pages, and we're coming close to the end of the wastewater rate study to do a solid, robust, giant analysis on that. I think I could maybe do a brief one and look at some of the lessons learned for sure. But I was sort of going on a move forward basis. We would come up with new development charges, roll this into debt, determine what projects really need to get done, determine the financial risk associated with it, do the wastewater rate study. We've got our asset management plan done. So we're on a go forward basis. Definitely, I think there would be value in looking back and doing that assessment to find out how close we were. Perhaps a rough assessment. It's just trying to find the time to do something, on that scale.
Yeah, I think the opportunity would be if there's kind of a systemic pattern of error. And so the growth forecasts in the previous rate study seem to be the actual has ended up being lower than the estimated growth, as a case in point. And my understanding is that's sort of a systemic error that happens because municipalities are inclined to be more concerned about building something too small than building something too big.
Yes.
Is that right?
I would say that's close to correct. I think perhaps conservatism plays a role in that, but I don't really want to comment broadly on how municipal assess that.
Anybody else? Look on the screen. I have a couple actually. The first one is just looking at the next steps. It says Watson's will present our November 6th meeting to outline the process for updating the rates. How does that work for our timing? Like when, is that kind of late or?
Through the chair, no, it actually sort of works quite perfectly, and Watson thinks that we'll have all the information we need from the DC background study in time. The asset management plan is being passed end of September, and then we'll start working on the modeling. So we'll have those two pieces of the puzzle, and then from what I understand, it'll probably be 3 or 4 months, and we can easily, through that 3 or 4 months, come up with rates. And I believe the financial plan is required to be done June of 2026. So right now, as it stands, we will meet all our timelines and everything sort of dovetails quite nicely together.
Okay, thanks. And then just the last one. I just want to thank you for this because I think it's the first time I've seen kind of all of our debt in one little snapshot page. And this might not be a fair question, and it might have to wait until the council meeting, but I know you're new in the role, Aaron, but are you comfortable kind of with where we are in a debt position right now?
I would say that currently, yes, I think we are leveraged. I think that's fairly plain to see. It's, like I said, I think the debt has been strategic in nature thus far. I think moving forward, decreasing the financial risk from potentially here to here, while at the same time allowing for growth. I think that's the key, that fine line to find that balance. But certainly, moving forward, it will require prudent planning and an assessment, I think as Dorothy had mentioned, of our financial risk and what risk are we willing to accept, as a municipality moving forward with some of these projects. But as it stands today, with where the debt's at, it's manageable. But as you can see, we leverage, but I think it makes sense and it's strategic. So I'm comfortable with where we're at today.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question came into my mind as you were talking. Part of the future, and I know there's a lot more information, a lot more reports to come forward. Will part of that also include potential implications or impact of doing little to nothing? Because, and I'm going to clarify that question. There has been conversation in the community, not just in the media, with regards to what happens if we do nothing, because there is a certain sentiment in the community to just stop everything. Yeah. Will the report include what those implications would be on ratepayers and taxpayers?
Through the chair to Councillor St. Jean, absolutely. That has been started, and there's definitely risk associated with not doing anything, and there's significant costs associated with not doing anything. So there already is. So the report, by and large, is close to being done, but we just don't know a lot of pieces of the puzzle. But the framework is there, and in one of the sections, it is on if we do nothing. What are the costs associated with it, the risk associated with it, and Don mentions that to me all the time, right? So that section really has Don's name all over it because there are significant risks associated with doing nothing. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Nope, seeing none. Okay, can I get a motion then to receive this report for information, please? Oh, Councillor Maynard?
Yeah, I was just on the reserve, on the reserve section of this report. So it shows we have reserves of 27 million, capital reserves 14, DC reserves 13, 27 million. Can you maybe explain like what part of that, offsets I shouldn't say offsets, but is correlated to the debt that we have? Because you know, it changes things pretty significantly, because we have reserves of 27 million.
Through the chair to Councillor Maynard, absolutely. So again, it does appear at first glance that we've got more money in reserves than we had anticipated, just at first glance. And moving forward, we can utilize that towards some of the capital infrastructure. So in our rate study, for example, if we had estimated utilizing $2 million in reserves for a particular capital project, and we are up on reserves $3 or $4 million, we can certainly utilize reserves to offset additional capital items. And again, that would be built into your rate study in terms of your reserves, how much you're putting away into reserve and how much you're utilizing in terms of reserves per year. So definitely having a relatively strong reserve balance is a positive for the system, and I do believe we're sort of there. And you could look at it as an offset. It's not really, but you could look at it this way. We've got, let's say, $40 million in debt, and we've got $14 million in reserves. A lot of times that's already spoken for and it's built into the plan, but it does look like we are a little bit higher than we had anticipated.
So you're saying that when you get the new study, you could actually be drawing more from reserves than would otherwise be possible without you. That's when you could make use of those. I shouldn't say excess, but those a portion of those reserves.
Absolutely, yes. That you said it much better than I did. Yes, you can utilize that. So let's say we're up $4, $5, $6 million in reserves. We come up to we have another rate study coming up. Now we have more money in reserves than we had anticipated. So obviously we could that would affect the rates. We could apply those reserves towards future capital projects. So it really is a sort of a blessing in disguise to have that extra funding there and a strong reserve balance, certainly stronger than we had anticipated, because that'll be able to be utilized towards future capital projects.
Okay, seeing no other questions, can I please get a motion to receive this report for information? Councillor St. Jean, seconded by Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. St. Jean Maynard, motion that the Water and Wastewater Rates Community Committee receive report FIN 09-2025 for information.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you, Aaron. So that'll bring us to 7.2. It's a presentation about communications and engagement. And I believe Emily and Mark are both here to guide us through that.
Can somebody turn her mic on? Still can't hear her.
Oh.
Nick, can you hear this?
Oh, sure.
There we go.
Nick and Mitch, can you hear this?
I can hear you now.
I can hear you now also.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick recap for those who couldn't hear. I'm Emily Cowan, Director of Community Services Programs and Initiatives, and I'm here with my colleague Mark Kerr, who is our Communications and Consultation Supervisor. And we are here with you today because you, one of the parts of your mandates is to improve the public understanding and help inform a municipal communication plan about how the water and wastewater rates are set and how the system works. So what we're going to do is take you through a review of what we did last time for the last rate study and the engagement and consultation that took place at that time, and then have a bit of a discussion about how you can help inform engagement and communications to support the next water wastewater rate study. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark, and he can take you through what we did last time.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, so next slide, please. So back in 2021, we undertook some extensive engagement around the water and wastewater rates. Thanks, Ben. Basically we had two high-level goals with that consultation and communications. The first one was to help the public understand how the water and wastewater rates are determined, as well as to involve them in determining which water rate scenario that they pursued, or they wanted to pursue, really with the idea of engaging with the public and making an informed choice together. Next slide, please. So we did this through a variety of means. One of the main platforms, the main tools or tactics that we used at that time was our Have Your Say platform, which was relatively new at the time. We've had it now for several years, but just some high-level stats that we had around that engagement. We had 1,100 aware of the engagement. So that's basically when people come to the site, they don't really click on anything. They're there. They've come. They've checked out to see what it was. We had 280 people informed. That means that they've clicked on something or they've decided to take the survey that was on that page. They've taken more action to learn more. And finally, we had 131 engaged. They engaged either through the online survey that we had or the discussion forum that we had on that page. On that Have Your Say page, which is still up on our Have Your Say platform that you can go back and look at, we had a pretty in-depth background information on the water and wastewater rates. We did a breakdown of what goes into setting the water rates, as well as answers to key questions that we thought the public would want to know at that time. Will our rates go up? As well as an explanation of full life cycle funding and trying to help the public understand what that actually means. Slide. So as I mentioned, we had a survey online. We had 118 that were completed. Basically, the survey focused on gauging the level of support for the 4 different rate scenarios that were developed by staff and Watson's at that time. As I mentioned, they were available online through Have Your Say. We also did pop-ups in front of libraries in the communities that have municipal water service. And there was also a discussion forum where people could ask questions or put their input on the various water scenarios. That was more focused on the online. We also had a variety of other means that we used to share information with the public. We did notices. We had information on our website, our corporate website, our social media channels at the time, print advertising, earned media through local media coverage, doing stories on the water and wastewater rates. As well, there was the possibility for the public to reach out to staff and arrange technical tours on request of the water wastewater sites. And I believe, Don, I think a few people took us up on that offer as well. So people could come in, see how the plants work, ask questions about what's required of the technical operation of the plants. So that was kind of an overview of what we did, and we just had some, we can for questions, but maybe some discussion questions to help guide the conversation this morning. Just trying to find out from you and from your expertise in this area, some of the biggest challenges that you feel it comes to communicating and engaging with the public about water and wastewater rates. And then from there, just getting some of your ideas that you may have for maybe some outside of the box ideas on things that we could do differently this time around when we engage the public in early 2026 around the water and wastewater rates.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Bob, I knew you'd have your hand up.
Like, I don't think this is easy at all.
No.
Like cutting through all the noise, and actually educating people about. So it's one, like, it looks like you've, through lots of effort to disseminate information. Has there been anything done to evaluate the impact of that, how it's changed opinion? Like, you had, there's a stat with websites called bounce rate. So with your survey, bounce rate is when people go to the site but they don't open up anything. So your bounce rate on that survey was, I don't know, around 80% or something like that. You end up with about 120 people completing a survey. So obviously that's well short of the level of engagement that, you know, that would be ideal with something this significant. So I'm wondering whether any thought has been given to, like, going out to the 6,000 ratepayers and asking them what they want to know, and then providing them with that information.
Yeah, that's certainly, I think, a goal with this engagement would be definitely to close that gap. Obviously, we see people that are interested in it, they've come to it, but they don't want to engage further with it. I think closing that gap, as you say, like the bounce rate, that's something we'll definitely want to focus on, and that's kind of what we want to have this discussion here of what that looks like, getting your ideas, and then coming back to this committee in November with a fleshed out plan that addresses that.
I don't know what the results were, but I know Knapp and he did kind of a communication survey asking, now that wasn't specifically on water and wastewater, that was more general, but asking people what sort of information they wanted to receive from the municipality and how they wanted to receive it. It is, like, I think it is really difficult. People will certainly get engaged after the new rates are issued. And
we definitely want to reach them before
yeah,
before that
well,
point.
that would be it would be better if we reached them before, because you won't have to try and reach them afterwards. So I do think this is worth it's worth some investment of time and effort to find ways to do a better job of educating people.
To your point, we do have funding in our budget for 25 to go out to the public and do a more in-depth survey and asking those buried questions. I am aware of the Napanee example that you provided and other municipalities that have done that. A lot of municipalities will do it on a 2-year basis, where they'll kind of, and the idea is to get this year to get a baseline to figure out how people want to be communicated with, how happy they are, maybe different ways they actually want to receive information, and then follow up again in 2 years to see if we're making progress in that area. So I think when we do that work in probably the fall of 2025 of this year, those lessons learned could be used to inform how we tackle water and wastewater rate consultation in 26.
Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. Well, this time around probably will be significantly different because people are more engaged. So we'll start at a better position. But I'm just wondering, like, after the last rate study was done and implemented, did we go back and do, or are you able to go back and do any kind of a post-mortem on, because honestly, I don't think my just on the ground recollection is that, it was pretty well accepted, but I'm just wondering if you went back so that we, maybe can learn from that what people might be looking for going forward, you know, doing a postmortem on what happened after we initiated the 2022 to 2026 rate study.
We haven't done that specifically, and just maybe a clarification question. Are you asking how they feel about their rates, or?
No, well, because it's historical in nature now, I know it might be kind of difficult, but, you know, just anecdotally, I don't think we didn't have a huge, huge backlash when the rates were, but, you know, I guess by knowing what happened when we released the 2022 to 2026 rates after the study was done and everything was, tied up in a bow, you know, what happened then as opposed to what maybe we expect, because we obviously have a more engaged or citizenry now.
Yeah, we don't have.
Because what happened last time is not likely what, you know, will happen.
Yeah, and we unfortunately would not have that. It would be mostly anecdotal evidence, but we don't have the specific statistics around that.
Yeah, like no emails or deputations, like, you know, those sort of things that would have come after the rates were set. Just for
I don't have that, but I think as we build out the communications plan, a key part of that is the strategic considerations, and I think one of those would be what was the sentiment after, and we can do our best to gauge that. It probably will not be obviously statistically significant, but we can try to understand what those issues are as we go into the next study, and we can account for that in our communications.
Any other questions? Bob?
I don't know if we're at suggestions yet, but here's a suggestion. I think one of the challenges is that, you issue some kind of a communication, people forget really quick. There's so much, other information flying around all the time. So I don't think one-off communications are a good strategy. I think it's important to repeat important messages, and so and also to avoid promotion. So it's not about telling people why we're going to do it the way we're going to do it. It's about giving them basic information so they can make judgments about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So I would imagine we have a channel. I get communication about my bill every 2 months, so we have a channel that we could use to communicate with the people that are going to be most directly affected. And for example, one story might be, why does the Picton water treatment plant, why is it at the end of its life? Just the facts on a story like that. And the other stories that are involved in this and will have a significant impact on where we end up. So that'd be a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I think I kind of agree with Bob. Like, I think it needs to start sooner rather than later. Because to be honest, I think one of my biggest fears with this committee is that we start to communicate late and we're kind of the ones that get kicked for rates being high. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be our fault. So I think we need to start communicating now, and I don't know whether it's I always hear from people, they want to know what the rates would be in different scenarios too. So I don't know whether there's a way to communicate what those rates would be in different scenarios. That might be more of an Aaron question. But
I just know that last time on the Have Your Say page, there was a pretty extensive chart that showed if you went with this scenario, here's what you'd be paying in 21, 22. So we had all that information from Watson's. I'm assuming that that would definitely be a recommendation for me, because I think it did help the public show, if I want 1A, here's what I'd have to pay, here's what I'd have to pay in the summertime. But I'm not sure when that would, I don't think we're at that point, obviously, yet.
Another possibility might be to do a story on the previous rate study. So what is a rate study? how did the last one turn out? You know, what position has it put us in? Because overall, it sounds like it's ended up putting us in a relatively good position. So, I mean, that's a story worth telling.
So it sounds from what you're saying, like some preconditioning, pre-messaging before we get to that point. Thank you. That's point taken.
Any other questions? Nick or Mitch, do you have anything to add? Mitch?
Yes. While I'm listening to this and what I've been thinking about before is in Wellington, I know the local newspaper is read. Everybody reads it here, and then the talk starts from that. What I've noticed is it's good coverage of what's going on in the area. It seems to be reporting on what's happening. I'm wondering if there's a way of engaging the newspaper in an ongoing interview process where they come in and they talk to somebody on an issue, and it generates an interest on an ongoing basis, a weekly basis with the paper, where then they get feedback from the public and can ask these questions on a rolling basis. I don't know whether that's been done before, but where engaged in the power that the local papers have here and getting that message in, and they will get follow-up feedback from the public. Certainly, I know they will from the area that I live in.
I'd like just to build on that idea a bit, whether if we, got the staff who were, the experts at a particular issue, and sort of organized an interview that could be attended by both the newspapers and also County FM, because I think these stories would be good stories for Grapevine. And that then allows the papers to take the facts and then editorialize it as they choose to.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the benefits of this market that we live in is we do live in a rich media market. A lot of jurisdictions have lost their local newspapers. They don't have the outlets that we have. So I think it's definitely a strength that we have in this community, that we have local media that we can work collaboratively with, arrange, as you say, some expert interviews, giving them access to those staff members that are able to answer the questions and explain the issues. And I agree that it's just not print focused. We obviously have the Grapevine, we have the online, several online news outlets as well. So I think it's a whole earned media strategy that we would develop to take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Nick?
Along with the online and all that other, there aren't 2 newspapers in this county. There are at least 4 different parts of the county. You got the Belleville Intelliger, you got the County Weekly, as well as the Wellington and the Picton Gazette. So unfortunately, we're in an area where we have so many news outlets, both print and online, that everybody that lives here swears by their particular one. So there's not one that we can advertise in and put this. I think the county should make a decision and say, look, if you want to know what's going on in the county, this is the main information outlet, and then go from there. I know it kind of sucks for the others, but this is the main one. So we publish in this one everywhere. And if you want to know, that's where you go. If you can't get the information you want, then you're not looking in the right place. Because this is going to cost a fortune to advertise in every newspaper or get somebody in those newspapers to actually be the liaison to the county and provide the information. So I think we're really stuck here, and somebody's got to make a decision and go from there.
Okay, thanks. We're kind of stumbling into uncomfortable territory for me here too, so I have to move on. So
I don't think we need to pay for any of this. We create a forum, and open it up to the media outlets that want to cover the story. Shouldn't be paying for it.
Yeah, I would add to that that we would look at doing perhaps a small ad buy. It wouldn't just be print newspaper, but we have had some success with doing digital advertising. So that's would be part of the plan. But I think the overall strategy should be working with the news outlets, but establishing county channels as the place to go for simple, easy to understand information, like always driving people back either to have to both have your say as well as the website, in establishing that trust in those channels, and then working with our local news outlets for coverage.
Councillor St. Jean?
I tend to agree. There's no need to pay for this type of information. It's news. And quite honestly, our three newspapers of record in the community, they make pretty darn good money off of the ads that the municipality already places, predominantly planning ads. So I would tend to think that they would be interested. It's news. It'll help with their circulation. To me, this is a non-cost item. The only cost will be labor on the municipality side and time investments. So I think this is a really good approach. The broader, the better. And I take note of the fact that the north end of the county gets their news in a different way than the south end. I think we all know that. But there are plenty of opportunities there, and I think I agree we need to do this in a way and being proactive about our messaging as opposed to reactive, because when you don't tell people the whole story, they'll make it up for themselves. So,
Ray?
Yes, thank you. So one of the ideas that I've come up with, and I've used this successfully elsewhere, is public engagement centers, whether it's public information centers, open houses, whatever you want to brand it or call it. But incorporating a couple of those events strategically throughout the life of the development of the rate study, and that's one effective way of initiating engagement. And it also has the added benefit of engaging the local news outlets and medias to bring attention to the project at hand. I think that's something that should be considered. There will be a cost associated with that because I would see that this would be something that would be led by people who the consultant team doing the rate study for the county. With probably a facilitator always works best as well to help channel the energy correctly and appropriately and get some focus to these meetings. But these seem to work quite well in terms of getting some messaging out there and giving an opportunity for people to engage. And it's like I said, I think it's one thing that we should consider for this rate study.
Emily, did you have something to add?
I did. I'm trying to be the last word and just saying, although please continue to provide feedback, but basically what I'm doing is soliciting you to provide more feedback after this meeting. On the second last slide, there is an email address that you can send this to. You can give us a call. And over the next few months, we're working on this framework to bring back to you. So really appreciate the ideas that you provided us and any that are forthcoming. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that it doesn't stop today. Please reach out to us if you come up with something else that you'd like us to know about.
Okay, thank you. Councillor St. Jean?
thank you, Emily. And you'll probably get an email from me soon because I have some other ideas that may not be worthwhile, but at least I want to get them out there. Our county homepage. We need whatever information that goes out to the media, I'll call it the facts page. It needs to be within easy reach on our homepage. It should be front page because this is front page news. I shouldn't have to go 3 and 4 clicks deep on a website to find basic information. So, we do the bottom of our homepage. We've got direct connection to the planning portal, things like that. I think that is ideal, but not buried down at the bottom of the page. I'd like to see it at the top bar because the most pertinent information should be also the easiest to access. and of course, I think that whole principle applies to a lot of the things the municipality does. And I do know that our website, boy, oh boy, it needs a new refresh. It's rough. And I know it's long overdue upgrades to it. But that's a budget consideration, I think, in 26 and 27, because it's not going to be a small dollar item. So anyways, just our website is just as important as the media's sites. And you know what? That's where most people go to for I want to know something about the county. pecounty.on.ca, and you find it. So anyways.
I'll just say thecounty.ca. That's okay. Thecounty.ca, and you'll find it. Yeah, I do take your point. There's obviously a lot of competition for the homepage with various strategic initiatives that we have and important information that we need to get out there. So I think at key points during the consultation, we can look at having it on the homepage, but also using other tools like pop-ups. When, like right now with the recycling transition, when you immediately land on the homepage, you get the pop-up telling you that changes are happening. So we could also look at that as well to get it front and center for people.
Bob?
Thank you. When can we expect to see the plan?
So the thought here was to take what we've received today, review and analyze it, and come back at your November meeting with this more developed plan that would show us how we're going to do communications and engagement for the water and wastewater rates in 26.
If we end up having another meeting before November, would it be available then?
It's certainly something that we could look at having available. Just depends on timing of that meeting.
Thank you.
And just the last thing to add, I'm thinking specifically in Wellington, we have the Wellington Community Association, the Wellington on the Lake Citizens for Responsible Growth. If we're going to host some events, it might be good to partner with them because county events seem to be not attended as greatly as events put on by those groups. So if they're willing to help out too, I think they'll pull a big crowd to those events. So, okay. All right. Given that, can I please get a motion to receive the discussion on this item? Ray, seconded by Bob. So it would be that the Water and Wastewater Rates Community Committee discussion regarding communications and engagement be received. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. And that brings us to 7.3 future meetings. I see our page here. So our next scheduled meeting is November 6th, and it's the rate study roadmap. I think that's when Watson's will be here. To Bob's point, we can call a special meeting if we wanted to between then for the communications portion. We can discuss with Mark and Emily if they have something ready before then we could call a special meeting and then get together.
I was wondering whether we could move up at a meeting before November, move up one of the items that is less dependent on some of this background work that's happening.
Yeah.
So for example, I was thinking maybe the smaller village systems, move that up and also perhaps in the same meeting have the communication.
Maybe into like a September or something. Would that, yeah. Donna, do you think that's doable to?
Through the chair to you, Corey, yes. I'm sure I'd have to speak with engineering, but they'll be the lead on that. But that information they already have, so it should be reasonable to do.
Okay. And Emily, you think you can? Okay. So maybe Ben and I can work together and we'll pick a date in September and then we'll reach out to the committee and we'll kind of go from there. Okay. Anything else on this roadmap we have here that we want to talk about now? No? Okay. So can I get a motion then to receive this discussion, please? Councillor St. Jean, seconded by Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. St. Jean Ryerson motion that the discussion regarding water and wastewater rates committee schedule of meetings be received.
All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So our next meeting will be tentatively in September, so I'll reach out to the committee and we'll let you know what that date is. So that brings us to adjournment. Can I please get a motion to adjourn? Bob, seconded by Ray. This meeting now adjourned at 11:03 a.m. All those in favor? Thanks, that carries.
I was a little concerned about communications with